Okay, thanks everybody for joining me today for our summer succulent cupcakes. What we are going to do first is I'm going to take you through the supplies that we're going to be using for this project. And the medium that we'll be making our succulents with today is buttercream. So we're going to talk a little bit about the consistency of buttercream that you'll want to use. I'm going to show you how to color your icing. And then I'm also going to show you how to prepare a bag and a tip. I've also got a really cool technique of filling a bag with 2 different colors of icing to give your succulents a little two-tone effect, which is really neat. And then I have 6 different succulent designs that I will walk you through. And let me put my disclaimer out there right now. I do not have a green thumb. It seems that I cannot keep any plants alive, so I've never cared for succulents. I don't know a lot of the names of the succulents. So in my buttercream succulent garden world, I've sort of created my own succulent names. So you'll have to bear with me when I refer to each type. I pretty much just name it something that has to do with the type of tip that I'm using to create it. So if you do know the real names of the ones that I am making today, definitely feel free to put those in the chat for everyone, and you can educate us all. So let's get started. If you can go ahead and just switch my camera view. So this is what we are going to be making today. But first, we're going to go over the supplies that we are going to be using. So I'm using the creamy Decorator icing today. All of the Wilton ready-to-use icing is labeled with the consistency on it. This happens to be a medium consistency. This is available at Michael's. It's a little bit different from some of the small canned icing that you can buy in your grocery store. A lot of those types of icing, they're good to just cover a cake with, but they're not good for decorating. You wouldn't want to put that type of icing in a decorating bag and pipe with it. It's just not the right consistency, where this will hold up really well for piping. We also are going to be using a lot of the supplies out of the I Taught Myself to Decorate Cupcakes kit that's available at Michael's. The angled spatula is great for filling your decorating bags and also for mixing your icing colors into the icing. We're going to be using a few of the tips out of here. We'll be using the tip 104, which is a petal tip. The star tip 18, and then another star tip 32, and then we'll be using the disposable decorating bags as well. And then there's a couple other tips that you'll want to have. This is a 3-card set where you have a leaf tip, which is number 352, and then we'll also be using the star tip 224 from that set. We're also going to be adding some color to our icing. So you'll want some of the icing colors. I know there were quite a few listed on your supply list. You don't have to have all of those. I just wanted to have a nice variety of shades of green. So if you just have a couple of colors, that's fine. And then toothpicks are nice to have on hand when you're mixing your colors. We'll use that to add the color to our icing. And then you're also going to want to have some scissors, because when we go to use our decorating bags, we're going to need to snip the ends off the bag. And then of course you'll want your cupcakes. So for starters, let's talk about the icing consistency. So again, this is medium consistency. The creamy icing, even though it's medium, this is actually very good to ice a cake with as well. Typically, you would use a thinner consistency when you're icing a cake, but this actually, this kind in this size bucket works really well for icing a cake. You don't even need to thin it down. But if you are looking to thin down your icing, you could just add a little bit of water and hand mix it in. So to test if you've got the consistency right that we're going to need, again, we're using medium. If you just stick a spatula in your icing container, when you jiggle the bowl, it should fall over. Your spatula should start to lean a little bit. If it stands up and when you jiggle it, it doesn't fall over, that means it's probably a little too stiff and you'll want to just add a little bit of water. And again, you can just hand mix that in. If you find that as soon as you stick your spatula in your icing, it falls over immediately without you even jiggling the container or the bowl, it's probably a little too thin. So then what you could do to try to stiffen it up a little bit is just add some powdered sugar or confectioner sugar and mix that in, and that might help to stiffen it up a little bit. Okay, so you can kind of see what the consistency is here. So now what we want to do is actually add a little color to our white icing. So I'm going to be using these icing colors. This happens to be Juniper Green. And these are nice because they're actually like a gel paste consistency. So it's not going to change the consistency of your icing. It won't thin it down when we add it to the icing. So what we're actually going to do is I'm going to take a couple of toothpicks here and just grab some paste out of here. And I'm using a pretty generous amount because this is quite a bit of icing that we're going to color. And then we can just take our spatula and mix it until it's all blended in. Once it's mixed, if you find that you'd like it a little bit darker, we can go ahead and add more icing color to it, but you're always going to want to take a fresh toothpick to get more color. Because if you stick the same toothpick in that now has icing on it, you'll end up contaminating your icing color. As long as you're always using a fresh toothpick, these icing colors will last a good 24 months. So they do have a very long shelf life. They don't need to be refrigerated. And they can also be used to color fondant as well. What's great about these two is unlike the primary color packs that you usually find in your grocery store, Wilton has a wide variety of colors. So if you want to create a burgundy colored icing, you don't have to sit there and try to figure out from those 4 primary colors, what would you combine to get a burgundy color? Wilton takes all that guesswork out of it by putting all the different colors in a jar like this. So there is our Juniper Green icing. And what we're going to do now is go ahead and we're going to prepare a decorating bag. So I've got my bag here and we're actually going to be using a tip 18. So that is the little star tip that came in the I Taught Myself cupcake kit. So what you'll want to do first is put your tip in there, and then we're going to want to snip the end off. And what I usually do is go a little bit more than the width of my thumb. You want to be careful not to cut too much off because then what can happen is the tip will poke right through when you're piping, and you certainly don't want that. So once you cut the end off, you want to push the tip through, and you shouldn't be able to see a little gap. I don't know if you can see this in the camera, but there is still a little gap there. So I'm going to go ahead, push my tip in, and cut a little bit more off this because you want the tip to rest nice and snug in the end of the bag. All right, so that's pretty good. There's really no gap there now. Then to fill the bag, what you can do is make a cuff over your hand and put the bag in your non-dominant hand. So I'm actually left-handed, so I am going to hold the bag in my right hand. The other thing that you can do is take a glass, and if you want to cuff the bag over the glass, now you've got two hands free. So you might find that that's a little easier too. So I'm just going to go ahead and put the icing in here. And you want to be careful not to overfill the bag. I think a lot of beginners have a tendency to want to just fill it to the top. And that's actually going to be a little harder to control if you put too much icing in there. You run the risk of it oozing out the top of the bag, which can make a mess. And it just makes your hand work harder if you've got a lot of icing in the bag. So now we're just going to uncuff it. And I'm going to use my thumb and my first finger to sort of force the icing down to the bottom of the bag. And then if you want, you could even put a rubber band or a bag tie on the top of the bag, and that will help prevent icing from shooting out the top. You don't have to have a bag tie or a rubber band, as long as you twist the bag and then hold it right in this part of your hand. That should also keep the icing from shooting out the top. So that's that bag. The other thing that I want to show you is how you can do a two-toned effect. I don't know if you can see this little guy right here. He's got that pink around the top, and then the rest of it is that light blue. So I'm going to show you how to fill a bag so you can get that sort of effect. So I've got another disposable bag, and I'm using the tip 104, which is a petal tip. So it looks like that. And we're going to prepare the bag the same way we did for the star tip, where I'm just going to cut a little bit off. And we want to make sure that it fits nice and snug. And then I've got my two colors of icing here. This is actually mostly rose with a little bit of burgundy mixed in. And then this is just a little bit of sky blue. So our accent color is going to be the this pinkish color. So again, I'm going to cuff my bag. I think what I'll do is I'm going to use the glass here. That might be easier for you to see. Okay, so I'm just going to take a little bit on the back of my spatula, and I'm going to sort of swipe it up the side of my bag. And you want to try to get your spatula as far down towards the tip as you can. And I'm not going to put too much pink in because our dominant color for that succulent is going to be the blue. So that looks pretty good. Now we're going to add the blue. Just going to clean off my spatula first here. And we'll go ahead and just be careful putting in your second color because you don't want to smear the color that you put in first. Okay. And then we'll uncuff the bag. Okay, so now you can see that most of it is the blue color, and then we just have this stripe of pink. So we will set that one aside for later. And I'm going to go ahead and grab my tip 18 bag that we just filled with Juniper Green. And we're going to go ahead and start with our first succulent, which is going to be our pulled star succulent. So that is going to be this one right here. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to start by just piping basically a little blob that's going to be the base of the succulent. So I'm holding my bag straight up and down. The back of the bag should be pointing towards your ceiling, and the tip is a little bit off the cupcake surface. I'm just going to give it some heavy pressure and let it build up till it's about maybe ½ an inch tall, maybe about the width of a penny. So you can see it's not going to be pretty, and that's okay because we're going to cover it up with what we call pull out stars. So I'm going to show you the technique first on my little practice board here. So the way you do a pull out star is, again, your bag is going to be straight up and down. Your tip's going to be a little bit off the surface. And we're just going to do heavy pressure. And then while we're still squeezing, we're going to lift the tip away from the surface until you get the height you want. And then you're going to pull away. So you'll end up with a pointy star. So we're just going to do a bunch of these around our base. We're going to start with our bag at an angle to get the bottom row of pull-out stars around our base. So if you're right-handed, you're going to hold the bag in your right hand with the back of the bag facing the right. If you're left-handed like me, you're going to hold the back of the bag to the left. And we're just going to touch the tip to your base, squeeze, and start pulling the tip away until you get the length of the leaf that you want. And the idea is to try to get them all the same length. And I'm just turning the cupcake with each star that I pipe here. So I'm not really having to change the angle of my bag that much. Okay, so we have what almost looks like a sun. What we're going to do now is do the same thing, another row of these pull-out stars right above the first row. And I'm going to start with my tip right in between two of the previous row. So they're going to sort of be a little staggered. And this row of pull-out stars is going to be just a little bit shorter than that first row that I did. Okay, and we're just going to keep repeating this until we fill the whole base. The next row, what I'm going to do is I'm going to angle my bag just a little bit higher. So again, if you're right-handed, it's going to be angled up a little bit to the right. Lefties, it's going to be angled a little bit higher to the left. And this next row is going to be even shorter than the previous row. And again, notice I'm turning the cupcake after each one I do. And then we'll finish off by just putting one at the top. Okay. So that is our pulled star succulent. Are there any questions on that one? And I can go back and do, we'll put a few of these on each cupcake. So if there's certain ones that you want to see again, just put that in the chat and Karen can let me know which ones you'd like me to repeat. So the next one that we're going to do is the barrel cactus. So that's these cute little guys right here in front. So I have a bag filled with moss green icing, and we're going to be using tip 32. So that's the star tip that sort of has a wider opening than the tip we just used. So what we're going to do is hold this straight up and down. So again, the back of the bag is to the ceiling. And we're going to use quite a bit of pressure because you want to give yourself a nice wide base for your cactus. The taller you want it, the wider you're going to have to make it so you don't run the risk of it toppling over on you. You can make it as tall as you want it. You know, for a cupcake, I probably wouldn't go too much taller than that. We can even fill in with some smaller ones if you want. And actually, you know what I don't have filled already is a white icing bag. So let me do that real quick. We want to add some needles to our cactus. So I'm just going to take a little white icing. And for this bag, I'm not even going to put a tip in the bag. We are just going to snip the end off the bag. And that will give us just a nice round opening, so we don't even have to worry about a tip. For those of you that prefer to put a tip in your bag, you could choose any small round tip, like maybe a tip 2 would be really good. But I'm just going to go ahead and snip a little bit off. I mean, this isn't even 1/4 of an inch. And then you can just go ahead and randomly add some little dots. So you're just going to squeeze, and just like when we did the pulled star, you're going to let the icing sort of form a point by still squeezing as you pull the bag away from the cactus. And that will give your dot a little bit of a point. So again, you can just randomly add these. And then we're going to give the cactus a little bit of color using another star tip, the tip 224. So I have a bag with my 224, and this is a mix of rose and burgundy. And we're just going to add a little flower on top. I'll do it on the practice board first so you can see. I'm just holding the bag straight up and down. And I'm going to use a little bit of pressure and just let the icing squeeze out. And then I'm going to stop squeezing before I pull the bag away. So I'll just add one right to the top here. Oops. Okay, so you could actually go ahead and add maybe another little barrel cactus there if you want. And that'll sort of fill up that cupcake. You'll notice that I didn't even ice the surface of the cupcake first, just because we're using a pretty generous amount of icing to pipe our succulents. So it's really not necessary to cover the cupcake first with icing. You could even sprinkle a little brown sugar for more of like a desert look, you know, for sand if you want. That would be cute. All right, let's move on to our next succulent, unless there's questions on the barrel cactus.
We don't have any questions. We've had a couple comments. Tiffany, if you could pull the plate when you're decorating just a little closer to you so it's a little centered in the...
Sure, yep.
Sure.
Is that better?
Right there, perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so the next one we're going to do is what I call a beaded leaf succulent. So what I've done is I have done that two-tone effect with this bag. I took a little leaf green mixed with juniper green. That's what this color is. And then on this side, I used juniper green mixed with some lemon yellow. So you kind of have two different shades of green. And you'll notice that I did not put a tip in this bag because this is another one where you don't need to have a tip. If you do prefer to use a tip, you would grab a round tip, maybe like a size 8. So for this one, I'm going to snip a little bit more off my bag because I do want the opening to be much bigger than the previous bag I prepared for the needles for the cactus. Okay, so what we're going to do for this one is pipe some beads. I'll do it on the practice board first, so you can see how I do that, and then I'll go ahead and do it on the cupcake. So for this, I'm going to actually hold my bag so the two tones are sort of on either side. It really doesn't matter how you position the bag. It's just however you want those colors to come out. And you'll notice that I'm holding the bag at sort of an angle here, okay? So the back of the bag is going to be pointing towards you. I'm just going to start squeezing and let the icing sort of pile up, and then I'm going to slowly ease up on the pressure and pull it towards me to end it and touch back down to end it. I'm going to do another one. So you just start squeezing, pull the bag towards you, and then touch back down to end it. So that's how those are going to look on the cupcake. So we're going to start sort of at the edge of the cupcake, and that's going to be the outer part of the succulent. And we're going to work inwards, and that's going to be the center of the succulent. So here we go. I'm just working my way in, and I'm just going to do a row of these around. So you're placing each bead right next to each other. And again, you sort of want them all the same length. And you'll notice too that I'm turning the cupcake with each one that I pipe. So I'm not really having to change how I'm holding the bag. I think we can fit one more here. So now what we're going to do is repeat this right on top of this previous row. But like that pulled star succulent, I'm going to place the next petal in between two of the previous row.
Tiffany, can you pull it towards you again? For the people that have the closed captioning, it's the words are covering up.
Okay, is that close enough?
That's good.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you.
Yep. And hopefully the camera is picking up the two-toned effect of these two greens. Okay, we can go maybe one more row, and we're just going to make these beads a little bit smaller. And you'll notice that with each row you add, you're going to have to pipe fewer than the previous row. And there we have our beaded leaf succulent. Okay, any questions on that?
No.
All right, then we are going to move right along to what I call the leafy succulent. So for that, you're going to want to use your tip 352. Let me get this here. So this is what we're going to create next. This one right here. So what I did for this bag is I took some moss green, so it's mostly filled with moss green, and I just added a little stripe of rose. And we're going to do this sort of backwards compared to the bead that we just did. Instead of working in towards the center, we're going to work outwards. So this is going to be the center. So I'm going to start building around this way. And let me do an example on the practice board first. Oops. Okay, so you'll notice that with this tip, you have two little points. You want to hold it so the points are vertical, so it looks more like a bird's beak. I don't know if you can tell. So you want to hold it like that, not like this, okay? And you can rest a point right on your surface. You're just going to squeeze with a lot of pressure and let the icing build up, and then slowly ease up on the pressure and pull the tip towards you. And you can see that I've got a little bit of that pink stripe almost in the center of my tip. So that's how you'll create the leaves. So on the cupcake, we'll touch this tip to the surface, and we'll just squeeze and pull out until you get the length that you want. And these should all pretty much be about the same length as we go around in a circle here. The angle of the back of the bag, it should be sort of pointing towards you. You'll get more of a stand-up leaf, and it might be hard to see that angle. See how they're not lying directly on the surface of the cupcake? They're sort of angled up a little bit. To get that, you want to angle the back of your bag up a little bit more. So now we're going to do another row just like this inside, but we are going to angle the bag slightly higher. And again, we're going to place the tip so our first leaf is going to land right in between two of the previous row. And you won't be able to fit quite as many with this row. Oops, sorry. And then we're going to do that again, and I'll probably only be able to get maybe 3 in here, and I'm going to angle the bag all the way up. So the back of the bag now is to the ceiling. So you'll notice that that last little row of petals that I did, or leaves, they're actually standing straight up. So depending on how much you want to angle your leaf up, you got to think about how to position the back of your bag. So if you want your leaves all the way up, you're going to angle the back of your bag all the way up. If you want the leaf lying more flat, you'll hold the back of the bag more down, towards your surface. Hopefully that makes sense. So are there any questions on that one?
No.
Okay. Moving right along, we'll do the petal one next. So that's this little pretty two-toned one here that we'll do. So for that, we're going to use the bag that we prepared together that has the blue and the rose mixed with a tiny bit of burgundy. So let me do it on the practice board first. You'll notice that this tip has a fat end and a skinny end. You want to hold it so the fat end is down against your surface and the skinny end is straight up. And to get this two-toned effect, so the pink is sort of highlighting the top of your flower, you want to make sure that the pink is lined up with the skinny end of your tip. If it's not, you could just twist the tip with it inside the bag and you'll be able to line up your color better. So then we're just going to rest the fat end of the tip on the surface. the back of the bag is pointing towards you, and we're just going to let the icing squeeze out, and it's going to fan just a little bit, and you'll end up with something like that. And just like the other succulents, we're just going to go around in a circle and pipe those petals. So we'll do it on the cupcake. And again, we're working from the outer end of the petal inward. Okay, so the skinny end is up, the fat end is against the cupcake, and we're just squeezing the bag and letting those petals fan out. Now you'll notice right now it's coming out all pink. Actually, what I'm going to do is squeeze a little of this out, so hopefully you'll see the blue starting to show. There we go. Now you can start to see the blue. Oops. Okay, now we're going to do another row of these, and just like the other succulents, we're going to start the next petal of the second row in between petals of the row below. And we're just going to pipe those right on top.
And Tiffany, we have a request to slow down just a little bit. They're trying to keep up with you.
Okay, I can actually go back and do all of the different designs again. So that way, if they didn't catch something, we can go through the instructions again.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, so there is our petal succulent. Look how pretty the two tones are. Okay. All right, so for our final succulent, we are going to do the pointy leaf. So for that one, I have a bag with no tip because we just want a nice round opening on the end. If you are one that prefers to use a tip, you could use probably like a tip 8. I'm gonna cut a pretty generous amount off the end here. And this one's done a lot like the leafy succulent. We're just using a round tip instead of a leaf tip. So you're going to get a slightly different look. So we're actually doing this one right here in front. Okay. All right, so we're just going to hold the bag so the back of the bag is pointing towards you, and it is going to be at a little bit of an angle here. And you're just going to let the icing squeeze out and sort of build up, and then you're going to pull the bag towards you as you're still squeezing until you get the length that you want. This is really done a lot like that first one we did with the pulled star. We're just not really creating a base for the succulent. We're just going to do a series of these sort of just almost like pulled out beads. Okay, so let me grab our last cupcake here. And again, we're going to be working from the center out to do these leaves. So I'm touching the tip to the surface, using a lot of pressure and pulling the bag towards me. And then we're going to repeat this, but this time I'm going to tilt the back of my bag a little bit higher because we want some of these points to start angling more upward. And again, I'm going to place my next leaf just in between the two from the previous row. So you can see that it's standing up a little bit higher than that first row. And I'm also stopping squeezing a little bit sooner. So these petals are going to be a little bit shorter than that first row that I did. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and add one more row. And this time I'm going to tilt the back of my bag a little bit higher, so it's almost straight up. And we'll place the first petal in between two from the previous row. And I think I'm going to end it with one right in the center, pretty much straight up. And there we have our pointy leaf succulent. So what we can do, if you'd like, I can go through each of these one more time. And that way, if you didn't catch it the first time, you can see how we do it the second time around. So let's go back to the pulled star succulent, this one right here. I'm going to try to add that to this one here. I may just have to make it a little smaller. And you can adjust the size of any of these as I'm giving you a size. Know that you can make it bigger or smaller depending on your treat. If you're working on a cake, you're going to have a much larger surface. You can make your succulents bigger. I'm sort of scaling down the size because we want to be able to fit a couple on each cupcake. So for the pulled star succulent, we have the tip 18, and we're going to hold the bag straight up, and we're just going to pipe a blob. And I want it so it's maybe about a ½ inch tall. Okay, and then from there, we want to hold the bag straight out. If you're right-handed, have the back of the bag to the right. If you're left-handed, point the back of your bag to the left. And we're just going to start at the bottom of our blob and touch the tip to the surface of the blob or the base and attach the icing. Use a little heavier pressure, and then as you pull the bag away, you want to ease up on the pressure so that that star comes to a point. So heavy pressure and then ease up as you pull the bag away. Heavy pressure, ease up on the pressure as you pull the bag away. And then this is where it gets a little tricky because it's going to be hard to fill in that space. Oops, that space right in there. That's okay. When we go to add our next row of stars, we'll be able to cover that up. So now we're going to angle the back of the bag a little bit higher and do another row. And you want to place each one in between the leaves of the previous row. And then we're going to finish it off by probably just squeezing 2 or 3 stars on the top here. We'll see what we can fit in there. Okay, so that is the pulled star again. Any questions on that one? All right, then let's do another beaded. So that's this one right here, the two-toned color. How about if we add it to this cupcake here? So this is the one where you don't need to have a tip on your bag. So I'm using my two-toned bag without a tip. And we're going to start at the end of the petal and work our way towards the center. So the center for me is going to be here. So I think I'll put my first petal here.
And
The back,
move it towards you. There you go.
Sorry. The back of the bag is going to be towards you and angled up a little bit. Use heavy pressure and then ease up on the pressure as you pull the bag towards you. Okay, and then we're going to just turn the cupcake a little bit to get the right angle that we need here. And we're just going to continue around. So heavy pressure, and then as you're pulling the bag towards you, you're going to ease up a little bit on the pressure. Heavy pressure, pull the bag towards you and ease up on the pressure. Okay, then we're going to do another row of these. And start just a little bit further in than the first row that you did. And don't forget to place them in between the leaves of the previous row. Oops. Okay. Maybe we'll go one more row here. I can probably fit maybe 3 or 4 petals. Okay. Any questions on the beaded leaf succulent?
No, but we did have a question if they have leftover icing when they're doing this. Can they just put it in the refrigerator, keep it in the bags, squeeze it out? What's the best way to store that leftover icing?
You know, I have just left it in the bag overnight. I wouldn't leave it in the bag for a couple of days because the consistency can change a little bit. So you're actually going to want to mix it up. So if you just want to leave it in the bag for a day, you're probably going to be okay. As far as storing it for a week, I would definitely squeeze any leftover out of the bag, put it in a bowl, and put it in the refrigerator. It is going to stiffen up a little bit in the refrigerator, so you'll want to bring it out to room temperature before you go to use it. It might be a little hard to squeeze otherwise. Good question. Okay, let's see. So next we're going to do the leafy succulent again. So we will want to grab the bag that has the tip 352. So for me, that's the one where I use the green with just a little stripe of burgundy. So that will show up in the center of my leaf. And don't forget, this is that funny tip that looks like a bird's beak. So you want to hold it so the points are vertical. Okay. And for this one, we are going to start with the base of the leaf and pull the bag towards us. Okay, so the back of the bag is going to be a little bit at an angle pointing towards you. And we're just going to pipe a row of leaves in a circle. So this part is going to end up being the center of our succulent. And this one's going to get a little tricky, making it close to this other one. So we've got one row of leaves. Now we want to angle the back of the bag a little bit higher so our next row of leaves will stand up a little bit more. And we're going to make them just a little bit shorter and place that first one in between 2 of the previous row. And then we're going to do one more row in the center. We'll probably only be able to fit maybe 2 or 3, maybe 3. So if you want to get that two-toned effect for using this particular leaf tip, you'll want to make sure that when you stripe the bag, that one of the points lines up with the stripe. And that's how you'll get that stripe to land right in the center of your leaf. Okay. All right, we will do the petal succulent next. That's the pink and the blue using the petal tip number 104. And I think I'm going to add it to this one right here. So this is the one where we want to have the skinny end of the tip facing up. The fat end is going to be right against your cupcake. And we're just going to let the icing fan out. Just squeeze and let it fan out. This one's going to be right on the edge here. Okay, and I'm just going to add one more row. And again, you want to position it so the next petal is going to lie in between 2 of the previous row. Oops, sorry about that. And to get this two-toned effect, so the pink shows up on the top, when you go to use the bag, you want to line up the pink stripe so it's lined up with the skinny end of the tip. So if your tip shifted when you were filling it, before you go to use it, you can just turn the tip to line it up with the stripe. And that's how you'll get the colors to land just like that. Okay. And so for our final repeat of the last succulent, which was the pointy leaf, I'm going to use the bag that did not have a tip in it. It's just the round cut opening. And for this one, we are going to start at the center of the leaf and pull outward. Okay, so I'm going to start with a lot of pressure. The back of the bag is pointing towards me. And then as you pull towards you, you're easing up a little bit on the pressure. So start with a lot of pressure, pull the bag towards you and ease up a little bit. This might be tricky to get those last couple in next to the other one. I think we're going to leave that gap there, and when we'll be able to cover it with our next row. So we're going to place our second row. We're going to place that first petal right above the previous 2. And we're going to make these a little bit shorter than the last row and position the back of our bag a little bit higher than that first row. And now we'll be able to cover up that space there. And we'll go one more row. And this time the back of the bag is going to be almost pointing towards the ceiling. And these leaves are going to be even shorter than the previous row. So I'm going to put one in the center. Okay, and then I just realized I didn't do another barrel cactus for you, so we'll do
And
that one real quick.
that was the next comment I was going to share with you.
Okay, sorry about that. Let's see where we want to add that. Maybe we'll add it right to this one. So for the barrel cactus, we're using the larger opening star tip number 32. And for this one, we want the bag straight up and down. Your tip's going to start a little bit off the surface, and you want to use quite a bit of pressure. I'm going to squeeze until it gets to be, I don't know, about the size of a quarter almost. And then I'm going to start lifting my bag while I'm still squeezing and just let the icing build up. And that's about as tall as I'm going to go. You don't want to make it too tall or it might topple over. You could add a smaller one if you want next to it. You're just not going to use quite as much pressure. So if you want to place a lot of succulents on a cupcake, I would recommend doing your barrel cactus last because that's the easiest one to fill in. You probably noticed, like when I was adding this pointed one here, I had to work around my other leafy succulent next to it, so it can get a little tricky. So I would definitely save the barrels last. They're easy to kind of sneak in wherever you need to fill in some space. So to finish off the barrel cactus, we're going to take the bag of white icing. Again, you don't need a tip on the end of the bag, but this one we just snipped a tiny bit off the end of the bag because you don't want too much of an opening or you're going to end up with a really large needle on your cactus. So you're just going to touch the tip to the surface and let the icing sort of pull out as you pull the bag away from the cactus. And you can just randomly place these. And you're not using a lot of pressure for these because you want these needles to be pretty small. Has anyone told us what the proper names of some of our succulents are, Karen?
No.
No? Okay.
We must not have gardeners on today.
We'll just go with my silly little names then, I guess. All right, so we will end our barrel cactus with a little pink flower on top. So for that, we're going to use that star tip 224, and you can just hold that bag straight up like this and let the icing squeeze out right on top of your barrel cactus to finish those off. And there we have it. Okay, are there any questions?
No, we just had a request to just point out each cactus again and tell us what tip you used to make it.
Certainly. Okay, so the barrel cactus, that's the one that we just did. That is the star tip 32 that came in the I taught myself to make cupcakes. That's that tip. And then for the little needles on the barrel cactus, you can just use a bag without a tip and snip just a tiny bit off the end. I would say probably not more than like 1/4 of an inch at most. If you prefer to use a tip, I would use maybe a tip 2. You might even be able to use a tip 1. And then for the flower on top, that is the star tip 224 that came on the little 3-pack of tips. And then let's see, for this petal, the petal succulent that has the two-tone, the blue and the pink, that's just the petal tip that has the fat end and the skinny end. It's number 104. And then this guy right here in front, that was the pointy leaf succulent. For that one, again, I did not use a tip. I just cut a little bigger opening at the end of my bag. And that's how we did that one. You could use like a tip 8 if you do prefer to put a tip in your bag. And then this one right here is the leafy succulent. That was using the tip 352. That's the one that looks like the bird's beak. And again, if you want to get that two-toned look like this one over here, you want to make sure that you line that pink stripe up with the top of your point there. And then let's see, this one right here is the beaded succulent. So for that one, I used a two-tone bag without a tip. Just again, I cut the hole a little bit larger than I did for the needles because you want a little more icing to come out for those leaves. And I think that was all of them. Did I miss any?
I think that's it. And just run again what colors you used.
Yeah, so the pink flowers on top, I started out with mostly rose for this and just added a touch of burgundy because that rose is pretty bright. So I just wanted to tone it down a little bit with some burgundy. The needles, obviously, I used just the white. For the barrel cactus, that one is, I believe this is the moss green with the tip 32. The pointed, let's see, the beaded one here, there's with the no tip. This color here is the Juniper Green with quite a bit of lemon yellow in it. And then the other green color is just straight leaf green. Okay. And then for the leafy succulent, that was just moss green with that burgundy stripe. Is that all of them? Did I miss any?
I think that's it.
Okay. Well, I hope that you enjoyed this today. These aren't going to die on you like the real ones, and they're going to taste a lot better. So have fun with it. Experiment with mixing some of the shades of green, and you know, that really adds a lot of interest when you start experimenting with some of the colors. I hope that you have fun with it, and I wish you sweet success with whatever you decide to make next. Thanks so much for joining me, and I hope you guys have a great weekend. Bye.